No way, he played it. What?
No way! Is that the
Cannot
move?
believe.
What? Oh, it's the best
What?
move!
What?
What a move! I can't believe it.
It's a mouse slip.
The commentators are freaking, the chess world is reeling, and they're already calling this his immortal game. Playing with the black pieces, it's Aravindh Chithambaram. He's come out of nowhere to be storming this Prague Masters chess tournament, and he's rising the world rankings fast. Now, who was his opponent? The rock solid Mr. Made 6 draws already this tournament. It's Anish Giri. He's the Dutch #1, former world #3. You do not do this to a player of Giri's caliber. Prepare for destruction with the black pieces. So Giri opens with this pawn d4 move. They're over the board, by the way, in person. This isn't online chess. We get this explosive c4. Standard looking, Queen's Gambit declined. We get this Carlsbad structure, Bishop f4. Super solid from Anish Giri. Is he looking to add this game to his already existing collection of memorable draws? Who knows, right? Second edition's coming soon. Bishop f5 played. Aravind's so impressed with Giri's bishop placement. We see the knight develop, pawn to c ships, and now this one is just chased about. It attacks the queen. It slides into c2 here. This knight develops, and now after h3, the bishop dropping back, we see this one re-enter the game, and we get the centralization of this powerful steed, offering a pawn if white wants it, but you're well advised not to take it because bang, this check comes, your knight stumbling backwards if you don't want to lose your castling rights, and then the black pieces just start flowing into the attack. This kind of thing hits the bishop here. If you don't want to mangle your structure, you retreat, but then there's knight b4 hits the queen. You're just getting kicked from pillar to post. This is now a threat. Say you block it like this, well now there's this, you're hitting the queen, all sorts of stuff like this, right? So there are all these ways that black gets out of the bind, wins the pawn back with advantage. So don't take it, don't win the pawn here. That's why we see bishop d3. Now f5 cementos that one in the center. This bishop drops back, and we see castles from both players. King safety fist bump exploded out. Great etiquette at the board. The king side steps. It's prudent once you've lifted the kimono, and now we get this maneuver headed for f4 potentially, and a5 gains some space. Hints at activating this rook. The knight hits the center, and Aravindh just takes that one off. He's 25 years old, by the way, this young Indian player, so he's not one of these like kids, 16, 17. He's been around a while, but boy has his chess sharpened up. The king's under fire here, so this one intercepts. Now we see this one to kick away the pony. It stumbles backwards, and you could play some preparatory moves, right? b3 to stop the knight jumping. Bring a rook to the center, especially the a rook. It's a bit dead, right? But Giri doesn't do it. He goes for the super aggressive pawn to g4 here. Gary the debt collector banging down the door. And by the way, if you know a Gary, give him a hug. They're a dying breed, very few left here in the UK. They need our support. What do we see in response here? Well, just queen e7. And you actually have the chance to win a pawn if you want to. You know, bang, eliminate the knight, then take here. This one's stumbling backwards, but actually black's doing well. We won't click down all the line here, but yes, you've got an extra pawn, but it's doubled. Your bishop's a bit dead, and this guy can become a monster. Unopposed on these dark squares, especially these weakened to black actually gets a good position. In some lines you push g5. Okay, the pawn not won. Instead, we see knight g3 played, and it wasn't the best move because now g6 supports everything. Again, you're not well advised to start opening the files. Actually, black's attack is stronger, so Giri should drop the bishop back here, but he doesn't do so. He plays rook ae1. Looks really natural, you know, weak backwards pawn here, hit some stuff, but now you get takes played in the game, pawn recaptures, and the knight stumbles back. hits the loose pawn, and it's the black pieces now flowing into the attack. And if you try for this one now, slightly different position where you can recapture, sure you can win a pawn, but after takes, knight takes, look at the opening of the G file. It's actually black who's first to the punch. Here's a sample line, rook's flooding in, knight's flooding in, black is doing better here. So we run back. The pawn wasn't touched. Instead, Anish Giri plays f4, supports the e5 pawn here, but does shed the pawn on g4. You can genuinely take it. It wasn't played, but it was a good way to go. White gets some play here, but it shouldn't be enough for that pawn. Okay, not played in the game though. Maybe Aravindh didn't want to give this h-file activity, so instead, he's the one plays queen h4, just sitting on the head of this pawn like a sumo wrestler, also hitting the knight, which is loose. Queen h2 playable, probably the best defense here, but king g2 selected, so natural, and now here comes the absolute brilliancy. Now you might think this, right, but this time it's really not advisable, because after pawn captures, all you're doing is help white attack on the h-file. The queen's distracted there. Even if you do this, you do this. And there are some lines where the queen's getting a bit trapped. You have to be very careful. So we come back. We didn't see takes. Instead, the absolutely brilliant shot was landed on the board. Very well done if you can guess the move, find the move. Maybe you've seen the game already. I'm a little late to the show here. What was played? It was the stunning knight to g5.
What?
No way, he played it.
No
What?
way. Is that the
Cannot
move?
believe.
What? Oh, it's the best
What?
move.
What?
What a move. I can't believe it.
It's a mouse slip.
That knight has no right to be on that square. It's absolutely awesome. You're threatening to crash through on h3 here. What happens if you take it? The first question to ask, of course. Well then, now you take on g4, and the difference is you've opened the h-file. So if white recaptures, you take with the bishop, and now upon rook h1, hitting the queen and stopping the check here, there's bishop f3 check. F-file's open. Very different game. King goes somewhere, g1, but then you take the knight here. Say you stay with the knight, well then you take here. Discovered check. The whole house just collapses basically. Sample line here. We'll pause there. Black's killing it. So that is what happens if you take this one. You open the f-file, you cannot do it. So instead, we saw rook h1 to cover the base of the chain, but now the second brilliancy here. What do we see on the board? Very well done if you guessed this move. Pawn to d4.
I mean, d4 move, it just wouldn't even cross my mind. Very often one move is enough indicator. It's just like impossible to find d4. Absolutely impossible. Let's check if it's the main move, if it's the best move. It's second line, yeah. No, I mean, one move, clear indicator to me. I mean, it wouldn't even like cross remotely my mind, such move. I mean, even in classical game, I'm not sure. In Blitz, no chance at all. So everything is very clear to me about this game. I report, I block, and report.
And the brilliancy of this one is that you cleared the d5 square, so the bishop's going to snipe out and hit this king. And if you try and keep lines closed, it just isn't working. You take this kind of thing, if you take with the knight, well then you run into rook takes and the whole chain is just collapsing. It's horrible. If you take with the bishop, well then still rook takes, etc. right? So there are big problems. e4 is not playable. So instead we do see this knight captured. Now on this time we don't see takes on g4, we see takes here. What happens if here? I didn't really check. I guess you just open the rook, which isn't ideal. Okay, bishop e4 is best apparently. This is a tempo you didn't want to give white. The attack starts fizzling. There could even be bishop takes on g6 that you have to watch out for. So we didn't see this, but we saw this. And it sets up this f4 threat. So you should actually now play the best defensive move, which Giri doesn't find. Rook takes on e3. Because after pawn f4, rook sidestepping takes. The big difference about this line compared to the game is there's a pawn on g4. This guy's a bit blunted. The game's still in the balance here. Material is roughly level. White's a bit exposed. Black's a bit better. But game goes on. We come back here. What Giri did first was take with pawn on f5, but it's a big mistake. The question marks of doom appear on the board because after captures, still f4 is the threat. Still you have to respond to it by taking this pawn. If you tried this, by the way, trying to stop these squares, well, now you get the check here, this kind of thing. The knight can centralize, but here's a sample checkmate. I mean, there are different lines, right? But you just don't have time to not capture this pawn. So it was played. Now f4 comes. Black wins back the piece. This is how the line proceeded, and you can't even take this pawn here or you're in a world of pain. And this is why it's a much better line for black. There's no pawn on g4. If you do this, then the queen centralizes after check. The rook's invading, hitting this stuff. This pawn's about to drop, which then pins the rook here. You're attacking and you're not even material down. So we didn't see rook takes here. We saw the move of bishop e4 trying to cover d5, but now rook takes on f3, bishop recaptures. This second cannon joins the party, and after queen e4, desperate for the exchange of queens, Aravind's like no siree, slams this rook down on the board here, kicks back the queen, and now we get the third brilliancy of this match here. I mean, it's absolutely brutal. It's like trying to run a comb through Fabi's throw. What move was played here? The stunning finish, icing on the cake. Rook takes on f3. Well done if you spotted that one. And if the queen takes, this is the point. You get an absolutely kebabbed. If the king takes, same idea. You're going to win the rook and you can take even more. Say you go king e2. Whoops, now you lose your queen still. Say you go on a dark square then. Well, now you drop pawns with check. This kind of thing. The whole house drops. You can run away from the white checks. You're absolutely fine. You can get the queens off. G pawn runs. These are the kind of sample lines, right? Themes of the position. So we didn't see king takes, queen takes. We saw a check flicked in. King g7 now takes on f3. This one's no longer in the firing line for all the skewers, but still bishop d5 check. King e3 here, and don't take here immediately. Not the best way to play because there's a perpetual check which white can land. So instead, check was played, king d2, another check, king running, now a check from here, and after king d2 takes on h1, now we see resignation from Anish Giri. There's no longer a perpetual check. This square is covered by the queen, and if you try and check from here, well, fine, you can just run away from it. Now don't do what I did earlier when I was just having some fun clicking and get mated in one. Do take this pawn if you decide to run up the board. Yes, white can run here, but you can check, get the queens off, and again, don't blunder like I did and do this, and now you're losing the game. This is why I'm terrible at chess. You lose your queen here, but instead, in this position, take with the bishop. And now you spin round, you block the pawn. Just going to show you a nice sample checkmate to finish. Box in this king here, it's stalemated. Who cares, the pawn's running. Bang, there's a checkmate. Beautiful. This was the final position where Giri resigned. I mean, he hasn't been crushed like that in a long time. That was a special game. Hope you enjoyed this immortal chess game. Have a look at the video on screen if you want some more epic chess, and I hope to see you again soon. Cheers.